Good afternoon. Let me make this announcement before we get into tonight's agenda. Tonight, we are implementing the new guidelines put in place by the Oklahoma State Legislature that will allow remote participation in public meetings under the Open Meetings Act during the COVID-19 pandemic. Some council members are participating by phone, as well as some citizens. I would like to remind the councilors who are participating by phone to mute their phones when they're not speaking, and for each councilor to ask for recognition of the chair before speaking so we can keep up with who's making motions. With that in mind, we would also like to ask the community to please bear with us as we go through the new adjustments of this technology. And so with that, we will call to order the Finance Committee meeting for May 4th, 2020. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of April 20th, 2020.
Reviewing of the minutes, are there any corrections or additions to our financial minutes?
This is Councilman Van.
This is
This is Councilman Van. I'll make a motion to approve.
This is Councilor Stout. I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve our minutes. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 1 passes. Item number 2, please.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments April 10th, 2020 through April 24th, 2020.
Do we have a report from the Purchasing Committee?
This is Councilor Stout. The Purchasing Committee did meet this afternoon and approved all claims. I make a motion for approval. This is Boydston, and I second.
I have a motion and a second that we approve our claims for the week. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 2 passes. Item number 3, please.
Consider approval to award lowest bid to Acme Reese Air Conditioning for Station Number 3 HVAC installation in the amount of $37,278 or take other necessary action.
Do we have Mr. Wilkerson on the line?
Yes. Council, we would recommend Acme Reese in this low bid. We solicited 4 local HVAC companies to provide bids. We received 2, and this is a low bid. We recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Do we have any questions for Mr. Wilkerson or a motion at this time?
This is Councilor Stout. I move for approval. Boydston seconds.
I have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any discussion?
Is Station 3 Muscogee?
Go ahead.
Station 3 is where?
If I may, Councilor McGee, this is Mike Miller. It is the old fire station on West Muscogee that is no longer in service that we're remodeling into the senior center.
Thank you.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes. Yes.
All right, item number 3 passes, and with that item passes, that concludes our Finance Committee meeting for today.
We'll now call to order the Public Works meeting for today, May 4th. Item number 1.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of April 20th, 2020.
We've all had an opportunity to read the minutes. Do we have any corrections or a motion to approve?
Boydston moves to approve.
Reed, I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan, Stephanie Morgan, Alex Reynolds,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item passes. Item number 2.
Consider approval of the preliminary plat of Bushwood Estates consisting of 8 lots in 2 blocks on 1.97 acres located south of amended Eagle Crest Estates, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Callahan. Do we have Callahan on the line?
Councilor Coleman, I
Can
do
you hear me
believe.
now?
There we go.
Okay. If they have the PowerPoint going, it should run on its own. If not, I'll just go ahead. This is a request from Travis and Bridget Bearden for a preliminary plat of Bushwood Estates. It is 8 lots in 2 blocks on the 1.97 acres. It's to allow for residential development. And it is located south of the amended Eagle Crest addition. It will be to the west, south and west of the area where they enter off of Crestview Avenue. And it is zoned R1 single family. The lots are in compliance with the R1 single family residential zone. The lots do meet the subdivision regulations. Water, sewer, and streets with sidewalks will be installed and meeting the city specifications, and the drainage study will be submitted by the developer during the final plat phase. The staff and planning commission recommend approval. Be happy to answer any questions, and the applicants are there in the audience, I believe, to answer any questions or address the commission.
Thank you, Ms. Callahan. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee?
This is Councilman Ivory Van. May I be recognized, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Van.
Yes, I was wondering, for the sewer and the water, are they going to tap on to the existing ones out there already in Eagle Crest?
Yes, they will extend the existing water and sewer. There's a fire hydrant within the distance that meets the regulations.
Okay, because I know at one point it was too expensive to do this. So I was just curious, on the water. Is we going to have enough water pressure? We're going to have enough water pressure, and we're going to have, as far as the sewer, what's the sizes of them?
Yes, they are the standard sewer and water sizes, the minimum requirements. There's an 8-inch sewer line and there is a 6-inch water line. And if there is a fire hydrant, there is enough water pressure.
Okay. One more question. I would also, on the drainage out there, what type of drainage I think we need to start? I mean, I know this is preliminary, but I'm just curious because I know quite a bit about that area out there. I'm just curious what kind of drainage is going to be out there.
Well, that will be determined during the final plat stages when they have the drainage study completed. They'll have an engineer that will do an engineering study for the drainage. What drainage they provide would not correct probably any drainage problems that Eagle Crest already has, but they would make sure that they do not add to that by having the flow go onto their property or into a detention pond if that is deemed needed.
So the detention pond is going to be the best way to go?
I don't know. That would be what the engineer, the drainage study would have to determine.
Okay.
That was what was decided on the home creations, the Walnut Creek addition, to have a detention pond, but that was due to the drainage study. This one, we'll have to wait to see what the drainage study says.
Oh, okay. All right, Ms. Callahan, that's all the questions I have. Turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Van. Any other questions, or do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Councilor Stout. I move for approval.
Tracy McGee, second that.
Councilor Hibbs, I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Alex Reynolds,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
That item passes, and I believe we're at the end of the agenda for the Public Works meeting. We are now adjourned.
All right. This is Mayor Boydston, and we will call to order the special call meeting of May 4, 2020, and ask for the roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Here.
Marlon Coleman,
Here.
Ivory Van,
Here.
Jamie Stout, Evelyn Hibbs,
Here.
Alex Reynolds,
Here.
Stephanie Morgan,
Here.
Tracy McGee.
Here.
You have a quorum. Item 1, please.
Receive report on the COVID-19 pandemic in Muscogee, and if necessary, take appropriate action to authorize and approve a subsequent amendment to Resolution Number 2801, declaring a local emergency, or City-County Joint Resolution Number 2803.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. As you know, we are still in the state of emergency that's been declared by the city. We do have the joint city-county resolution in effect, as well as the emergency declaration. We do have a couple of people I'd like for you to hear from, and then we can entertain more discussion, certainly. We're going to have our emergency manager, Tyler Evans, speak here in just a moment, but first I'd like to ask Trish German from Muscogee County EMS. She would make a report to the council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Trish German, Muscogee County EMS. First of all, I'd like
Would you
guys-
please
Can
give
you
us
hear me?
your address, please?
Excuse me?
I say, would you please give us your address, please?
Muscogee County EMS, 200 Callahan, Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just giving a small report about Muscogee County EMS. Our call volume is still down about 30% from what it was last year. We are in good standings. We would like to address the city and the council. Guys, if you have an emergency, chest pain, difficulty breathing, any kind of one-sided weakness, please don't be afraid to call 911. Come to the hospital. People are delaying not going to the hospital because they're afraid that they might catch the COVID virus. I just want everybody to know that we are doing everything we can to keep our ambulances disinfected. The hospital is doing what they are doing to keep their rooms disinfected. They're keeping the COVID patients separate from regular hospital patients. So it's very important that people don't delay. Call 911, go to the hospital if you really, really need to go to the hospital. Another thing that I'd like to announce is Wednesday, May 6th, is National Nurses Day. So if you guys get a chance, reach out to your nurses. Tell them thanks for the hard work. We really do appreciate them. Don't forget to check on your elderly neighbors. Would be great. The whole city is doing a wonderful job, but we have a lot of elderly in Muskogee, so don't forget to check on your elderly neighbors. Reach out to them, especially if you haven't seen them in a couple days. Check on them, call them, knock on their door, check on them. I think that's the main things that I just wanted to point out today and stuff. So make sure you reach out to your nurses on May 6th. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor, if I may, I'd like for Tyler Evans to address you at this moment.
All right.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mayor, members of council. As of today, for Muscogee County, there are 27 confirmed cases of COVID-19 with 6 deaths and 20 recoveries. For the city of Muskogee, there are 14 cases, 4 deaths, and so far 9 recoveries. As you know, May 1st or last Friday was phase 1, part 2 of the governor's reopening plan, which reopened restaurant dining, gyms, entertainment venues, movie theaters, and others. We are only 3 days into this change, so it's still going to be a little too early to be able to really see any changes with regards to the number of positive cases or hospitalizations for this particular phase. We're still 11 days away from May 15th, which is currently set to be phase 2 of the reopening plan if the hospitalizations and incidents remain at a manageable level. We're closely monitoring the numbers every day. Every morning we get an update from the Muscogee County Health Department that details the numbers for the state, for every county, and the recovery rate. So like I said, we're a little too early right now to speak too far in on the changes that took place last Friday, but we're closely monitoring that every day. And we'll have a little bit better idea of the changes that may have occurred next Monday for next Monday's City Council meeting. And that concludes my update for this week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans.
Ms.
Mr. Miller, do you have more?
Really not. I really do not have much more. This just to add, we do have the resolution and the for the emergency declaration and the joint city county resolution on the agenda for the council to consider. Staff does not have any changes to recommend. We are still following the governor's plan as recommended by the task force and as recommended by, or as passed and approved by the city council last week. And so this is an opportunity for the council to discuss the current state. And so I have nothing more to add.
Ms. Mayor, this is Council.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Madam Mayor, this is Councilor Stout. Can I?
Yes.
I wanted to. I've had a few phone calls in reference to us opening up the baseball and softball fields at Hatbox because the town of Fort Gibson has canceled their league and has suggested their community teams to come to Muscogee and Coweta, and then Coweta, as of yesterday, canceled their league for the summer. And I just, wanted to bring that up for discussion, if that's something that we need to be considering as well, since our surrounding communities, otherwise we're going to be having those other communities coming into Muscogee. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that up and kind of get maybe other thoughts on how we should proceed with the baseball.
Okay. Who wants to express an opinion? Anyone?
Madam Chair, this is Councilman Coleman. I do agree with Councilor Stout's concerns, because I think one of the things that we want to look at before we reopen our fields is to have that conversation that we started on a regional approach, which basically said we didn't want to be a hub for other people running to Muscogee if everybody else around us was going to be closed. And I don't know if that's a discussion for tonight, Mr. Miller, or for next time that we come together, but I do think we need to have that conversation.
Mayor, if I may address Councilor Coleman.
Yes.
Thank you. This is Mike Miller. It is a good question, Councilor, that you and Councilor Stout have raised. The plan that we have in place is following what the council adopted and what the governor's plan is, that organized sports activities can reopen and operate under proper social distancing and sanitation protocols on May 15th if certain health criteria are met. And so we have not committed to opening up our sports facility, but we haven't canceled the season either. So that's kind of where we're at. And we're doing just as you've suggested, and what Mr. Evans suggested is we have very little data based off of the most recent openings. And May 15th is a goal that the governor set. We've not adopted any date, but the plan that the City Council adopted is that when the governor's phase 2 goes into effect, that we will follow it. And so we do not have to. We can adapt certainly to our city what we would like to do. So I did want to clarify that, number one, I think next Monday we'll have another council meeting, and I do anticipate us having this on, continuing to have a COVID-19 report and considering these emergency declarations and the joint resolution for us to consider what we want to do in our community on a weekly basis as long as necessary. I do anticipate in the next week we'll get guidance from the governor on whether he thinks phase 2 should be implemented and at what time, if May 15th is still the day or not. And then obviously we still have that authority as a city to decide whether or not we are ready to implement phase 2. So both of those conversations are appropriate for us to have as a community, appropriate to have today, appropriate to have next week as well. And so I'm just explaining kind of how we got to where we are based off of the legislation that the council passed. And we haven't committed to anything, but we are, by following the governor's plan, we have the opportunity to have organized sports activities when phase 2 starts under proper social distancing and sanitation protocols.
Mayor, this is Derek Reed. May I ask a question, make a statement, please?
Go right ahead.
Okay, Mr. Miller and as well as councilors, I received a call today in regards to social distancing in the eating facilities, the dining in facilities. I had a gentleman who visited one of the local dine-in spots, and he advised me that there were a massive amount of people not exercising social distancing. And so the question is, when he called the corporate office, he said, it's a personal responsibility to, self-distance. Do we have anything in place in Muscogee? Are we going to enforce, when patrons feel threatened, by, those who may abuse the social distancing?
So, Mayor, may I address that? This is Mike Miller.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Reed, that's a very good question. We do have a several prong effort for enforcement. Some of the detail I emailed to you guys on Friday, and I do encourage you to look through it, but we have 3 different phases. Number 1, we as a community have taken the lead in requiring businesses to have a mitigation plan, which includes social distancing and sanitation protocols and all those things. If they are open, they need to have one of those plans on file with us. Number 2, if they have a plan, they need to follow it. And so what we have in place now is through Ms. Callahan's group, through the inspections department, working with code enforcement, and if need be, the police department, a methodology for, number 1, if we get reports from citizens that people are not following their mitigation plans and social distancing, we can follow up on those reports and make sure the business knows it is their responsibility to enforce those, their own mitigation plans. And if they can't, then they run afoul of us, and then code enforcement and or the police can step in and issue citations. So if citizens know of a business that's not following the mitigation plan, we want to know about that, and we can encourage those sorts of things to happen. Our goal is not to be punitive on businesses, but our goal is we're open in phase 1 based off the governor's orders, and those do require CDC recommended social distancing protocols. And if you're not following those, you're not in compliance with the governor's plan or with our emergency declaration. Does that answer your question, Councilor Reed?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman Ivey. May I be recognized?
Go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Evans. You said you got a report from the health department. I was just wondering, did they say anything about testing? Have they got any more tests in?
Mr. Van, I'll let Mr. Walton, Doug Walton from the health department is also on the line with us. So if we may, Ms. Mayor, we can recognize Mr. Walton.
Okay, is he ready at this time? Doug Walton, are you there?
Okay, if not, Mr. Van, I'll go ahead and give an update. They are still testing, as far as to my knowledge, nearly every day. I can't speak as far as to how many tests they have currently available. I have not heard or been made aware of any shortage of tests here for Muscogee County. I also spoke with Cherokee Nation last week, and they were still testing, I believe, between the hours of 1 and 2 at 3 Rivers. That was kind of on a day-by-day basis that they're running the testing out there, dependent on weather and some other circumstances. But To the best of my knowledge, we're still testing here in Muscogee County. There's no shortage of tests. And if you meet the criteria and feel that you need to be tested, you need to call the Muscogee County Health Department and set up an appointment to come see them and get tested.
Hey, Tyler, it's Doug Walton here.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
We were waiting on you.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I was having difficulty unmuting apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, go right ahead.
Sure. I mean, I think Tyler covered it pretty well. We do currently have 30 of the sample test kits on hand and get more of those just about every other day as they become available. We have continued conducting testing at the health department since I spoke with you last week. Approximately 30 more tests that have come in. I think we have another 17 scheduled for tomorrow. Thus far, no additional positive cases have come from any of our testing. And we anticipate continuing to do, to do that same level of testing as well, as long as they're available. We are also conducting testing since I last spoke with you at long-term care facilities and nursing homes. The state has approved the use of a saliva test for those applications. Doesn't require the nasal swab. And so we have teams of nurses that are going into every nursing home in the county, and this is happening across the state over these next few weeks, collecting samples for all patients and all staff at all nursing homes.
Well, Doug, that's the best news I've heard all day. I'm glad because, we brought that point out Monday night about these nursing homes need to be tested. And last Monday night at council meeting, you said we had 40 tests in Muscogee then. So we got 30 more this week, so that's 70, and you minus 10. Okay, how many people have you tested this week? So we should have 70. We did have 70, but how many people have you tested this week?
Well, yes. I'm sorry to interrupt. The number that we had on hand last week, we used those and more came in, and we used those, and then so it's it's an ongoing process of receiving more of the kits for testing and scheduling as we have those available, and it's it's often not until the day before that we know how many we have available for the next day. That's just how it's kind of been running.
So it's not 30, it's just how many comes in, correct?
How many we actually schedule. They call the health department and we schedule a time for them to come so that our nurses can be ready for them. And we schedule those. We take calls throughout the day, and we schedule as many as call for as many of the kits that we have available that next day. Yes.
Counselor, may I ask Mr. Walton, how long does it take to get the test results back?
Right now, we're getting them in just about 24 hours, sometimes 48, but really nothing longer than that. It started out much longer, and they have gotten faster on the results.
Thank you.
So with the nursing homes, you don't have to search those symptoms. You're just going out there, correct?
Yes, Counselor, that is correct. They're going into those nursing homes one at a time and conducting testing of everyone throughout, regardless of symptoms or anything.
Well, how long do you think it'll be where regular citizens can get them without having symptoms?
Actually, they have loosened the criteria. I should have mentioned that, so that anyone can be tested at this point. I think outside of the one exception of if they are having an elective surgery, that has to be done apparently through the medical facility. But otherwise, we're able to test anyone that wants a test at this point, as long as tests are available.
That's great, Mr. Walton. That's a good report. I'm proud of it. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Ms. Mayor.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Walton. Are the tests outnumbered by the requests every day?
Mayor, I would say typically not. the timing has worked out fairly well. We do every now and then have a few that sort of fall onto a waiting list, but we've been able to just keep up with the requests, and now we'll see. I know we've posted some information on social media about the changes in the criteria, and I know the governor and others have been talking about that. And the calls scheduled for tomorrow that came in today, I think I said 17, is a good bit more than what we have had for the past several days prior, more averaging kind of in the 5 to 8 per day seeking tests. So it may be that we end up with more than we can provide, but so far it's not usually been the case.
Well, that sounds good. And we thank you very much for your report. Mr. Miller, where do we stand now on this question?
There's no action needed as far as staff is concerned, and but this is open discussion for council.
Yeah, okay. So we just received the report. Anyone have any other statements or questions? I didn't understand that if somebody said something. Speak up or we're going to item 2. Okay, item 2.
Consider approval to apply for, and if received, accept a grant through the Federal Aviation Administration in the amount of $30,000 from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act for operational expenses at Muscogee Davis Regional Airport, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin.
Mayor, members of the council, the Muscogee Davis Regional Airport qualifies for up to $30,000 in funding from the CARES Act. The funding is to help make up for any loss of revenue due to the coronavirus pandemic. We are requesting approval to submit an application through the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, in the amount up to $30,000. Be glad to answer any questions. Drew Saffel, our airport manager, is also present and available for questions. Otherwise, staff recommends approval to apply for, and if approved, accept a grant in the amount of $30,000.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Garvin or any comments before we decide if we want to take advantage of what sounds like a good deal to me?
Councilor Coleman, I move for approval.
Councilor Morgan, second.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Alex Reynolds,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 3.
Consider approval to grant a temporary construction easement and an access and utility easement to the United States of America Department of Veterans Affairs, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Callahan?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a request from the VA Medical Facility. It's the United States Veterans Affairs. They have asked for and requested a temporary construction easement and then also a permanent access and utility easement that will run from North 48th Street through the property that the city owns up into the west side of the VA Medical Center. This is to allow for a fire protection access and then also access to their facility for future parking. Mr. Ogle, the Chief of Engineering, was going to call in if he's on here. He can answer any questions. Staff does recommend approval and would like to also reiterate there are 2 different easements. The temporary construction easement will expire, whereas the permanent access and utility easement will remain in for as long as needed.
I see. Is Mr. Ogle with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
So the temporary easement is to allow for the construction access. Due to the stabilizing hillside, a couple years back, you'll remember that there was a hillside that slid, and further geological studies have been conducted to identify that the upper hillside is now stable, but the lower hillside still needs stabilization. And this easement allows access for the construction of that lower hillside stabilization. And then at the completion of that project, the area that will be cleared and stabilized due to that project will allow the facility to have additional parking. And that is where the permanent easement access is requested.
Okay, I have a question. Will this road we're talking about be used for anything other than the parking that we're talking about, or will it have anything to do with the regular traffic around that area?
As far as the VA facility, the only utilization that we will have on that road is for the parking. All patient activities will still have to be on the east side of the facility. There will be a stairwell access from that lower hillside up to, but it'll be intended for the use of staff parking.
I see. Okay. So it won't really affect anything else that goes on around there.
That is correct.
Okay. Does any of the council have any further statements or questions for either Mr. Ogle or Ms. Callahan? Then do we have a motion?
Councilor Coleman, I move for approval.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Councilor Morgan, second.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee?
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan?
Yes.
Alex Reynolds?
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs?
Yes.
Jamie Stout?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed?
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston?
Yes, and the motion carries. That concludes our agenda tonight. Before we sign off, though, I would like to encourage everybody to be kind and considerate and patient with our mitigation efforts and do everything you can to not mess up the works, because we are doing pretty good here in Muscogee. And the people who ignore the rules and regulations are going to cause everyone else to have trouble, and we will be backsliding. So let's all just put our best foot forward and do the very best we can to be mitigating citizens. And I wish you all a good night and be safe. We're adjourned.